Good morning, everyone, and namaste. My name is Krishnakant Roy. I'm from Symbiosis School of Economics. Now, we are here to begin session 2 on the theme Technology and Innovation in Delivering Transnational Education. It is my privilege and honor to introduce our chair, Dr. Gopala Krishna Prabhu, Vice Chancellor of Sikkim Manipal University, an accomplished academic leader with over 3 decades of distinguished experience in higher education. Popularly known as Dr. G.K. Prabhu, he has held several important leadership positions across Manipal ecosystem, including Chief Academic Officer at Manipal Education and Medical Group, Director at MIT Manipal, Registrar and Pro Vice Chancellor at MAHE, with an academic background spanning electronics and communication engineering, biomedical engineering, and a PhD from IIT Madras. Dr. Prabhu has made significant contribution to academic governance, institutional reforms, digital transformation, research culture, and industry collaborations. His rich blend of academic depth, administrative vision, and commitment to excellence makes him an eminent choice to chair this session. We all welcome you for this session, sir. Now, what we'll do, we'll request the presenters. There are 4 presenters in this session, 2 online and 2 offline. So we'll start with Dr. Diya Dutt, Advisor AIU and former Deputy Director, United States India Educational Foundation. We'll also keep track of the time. Our representatives will show you once 8 minutes are over and once 10 minutes are over. So handing over to you. And we'll also take 1 query after each presentation as per the session chair's recommendation. Over to you, ma'am.
So good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I was actually thinking about what my role here is, because I'm rather an odd one out. I'm neither an academic, I'm neither a researcher, but I'm definitely a very passionate person when it comes to higher education, because that is what I have done all my life, my 30 years of experience both in the US and India. So when Dr. Neeta told me that my proposal was accepted, it came as a very pleasant surprise, but also several challenges, because it took me back to my student days when research was an integral part of my academic journey. But I've left that. And when I was listening to speakers from the first session, I was wondering, I don't have a theoretical framework, So where do I stand in this? But anyway, I'm here to share some of my thoughts and what I have done regarding, this topic. Now, interestingly, this question that I raise about accessibility and mobility versus blended came from a conversation with a colleague, a young colleague from Symbiosis International University. She must be here today, Dr. Nidhi Piplani Kapoor, whose paper, as part of her PhD thesis, talks about, what is the axis of internationalization for learners. And that is the question which set me thinking that we are all talking about internationalization. It's a very attractive concept here in India. Everybody is talking about it. Everybody's talking about TNE. But where do learners fit into this, entire, perspective? And with that question in mind, this is what I'm trying to ask: is it accessible? Is it equitable or inclusive? And some of these questions have also been raised in the previous session by two of the presenters who raised this, but of course in a much more sophisticated theoretical construct, which I don't at all have. So this is how, for me at least, India's international model looks like. Basically, you classify them into 4 categories. And the first one, I put it because this is the most popular form of internationalization, which Indian universities working with foreign universities through credit transfers, through twinning, joint, and dual degree programs. This is a very accepted, popular, well-known mode of transnational education. Attracting international students and faculty, that's also gaining popularity. It is mandated under NEP 2020. offshore campuses of Indian universities, there are few, risk takers, some of them are here in the room, whose institutions have, taken the, first step, the risk to establish, campus in another country dealing with several challenges. And the recent geopolitical conflict that we are seeing has put these, campuses very much, in a position of, uncertainty. And of course, Indian ecosystem is now opening up to foreign branch campuses. So these are basically how we are looking at internationalization model in India. So next comes the big challenge is where is the data? I wanted to analyze, how is the TNE pattern emerging in India? And as we all know that the National Institutional Ranking Framework in India only does very partial capture of internationalization, international students under the quality and inclusive category by recording the number of foreign students who are pursuing, full degree programs. But it's not the complete picture at all. So I decided to look at the global ranking because Indian universities are increasingly participating in global rankings. So I focused on QS. That's because it was just easy to manage the data. And I looked at 54 Indian universities who appeared in the ranking. And I looked at their institutional practices. So basically, I went to the website. That was what my source of data was. I could not contact any institutional leaders. I didn't, because who would give me data? As an independent researcher, it's very difficult to get data here in India. And I did an objective, mapping of TNE models. And that brought me to something that, I have been discussing also at AIU, where I play an honorary role, is why not have our own ranking, of internationalization of Indian universities, where we, are telling the universities to report some of these indicators, of what defines internationalization, because NRF is very, very partial. So while we are talking about the four basic categories, I'm going to just focus on one, which is the, TNE model, which is established through collaboration, curriculum mapping, credit transfer. And this is what, the observation is that the degree-based collaborations remain very limited, that is the dual degrees. Joint degrees are again very few, and some of the IITs are doing it, and that also with Australia and UK, not with the US. Pathways and progressions are very prevalent. Almost all the universities that I looked in the sample all have, reported either pathways, that is, spread across 2 degree levels, or progression, which means they complete 1 degree here in India, and then they go on to a master's program at the foreign university. Short-term program is something which is very popular, and that is also Niti Aayog report also kind of confirms that short-term program is easy to design. Most of the universities are very happy to, do that, both for faculty and for students. And also, one thing which again I found lacking in many of the institutions was how many students are actually going on these programs, because that is where I could not get to the scale of these programs. I knew that these programs were happening, there was MOU signed, and some news item in the university mentions, students going, but how many students have gone, that number is definitely not reported consistently across all universities. So what did I do? I decided to look at the cost angle. And this actually gets back to the central question of my topic of my presentation, which is reframing transnational education in India, empowering the power of online learning. While we are not suggesting that online mode should be a replacement for TNE, for mobility-based models, but they should be incorporated or blended in the mobility, mobility models that Indian universities are choosing. So if you look at these 2 columns, it's very clear, same program, STEM program, masters, 1+1. Only thing is that in the blended model, it's completely being delivered here in India. And just look at the cost. The cost is almost 1/3. Yeah, cost is almost one third. And this has something which was raised also in the earlier presentation, that we need to look at the cost of the TNE models, and that also gets back to the question of access: is how many people would be able to really afford a 1 year's stay in a foreign country and spend $50,000 to $60,000. It's very difficult. For foreign branch campuses, again, I don't want to go too much into it because you're already discussing it a lot. But one thing which I feel is going to constrain their operations a lot is this requirement for foreign faculty presence for a reasonable period of time. It's extremely ambiguous. And this is something that the regulations needs to, be more flexible about, as to allow, them that flexibility, which is going to bring down the cost also, of participation of foreign faculty and make these costs maybe more competitive. Okay. So this is basically the missing piece, which I say is that, while we are all very focused on numbers and mobility, we're probably designing the TNE programs more, not for democratization or for access, but more for reputation, more for the numbers. And this is where we need to change, because there are a lot of examples in countries like Sri Lanka which are successfully delivering TNE programs in their home country, and students not having to leave, the home campuses. This is something that really needs to be looked at, with online or blended mode getting more legitimacy, more respect than usually is given right now. And I just want to, I don't have time, but yeah, I'll leave with COIL. I think everybody knows about it, but it's not an accepted model right now in India in terms of a TNE engagement. Okay, this is just the last slide, which is the long way forward. I think what I've spoken is summarized in that. But thank you so much for your time and for your attention.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful presentation. You can just wait for a second. As our chair recommended, that if you have any quick query question, you can ask. We'll take one question. So any quick question? Yes, please, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you. It was an amazing presentation. I'm Sanmitra. I'm from Bits Design, Mumbai. You just mentioned that COIL may not be the right structure to go to right now. What kind of structure do you think will fit in instead?
No, I didn't say that. I think what I meant to say is that COIL is required. It's only that we are not talking about it too much.
Okay.
And that is what at least my research showed when I was examining the websites, COIL is not something which is like, widely
It's not on the
mentioned.
website also most of the times, no? It's almost always in the educators' folders.
Yeah. And
That's why maybe...
There's a COIL Connect, there's a network, and I saw very few universities. Symbiosis is, of course, one of them, which is doing a lot of COIL, and, so, yeah.
So it's recommended.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. We have our next presenter, who is Dr. Sharia Sharin, who will present online, Assistant Professor, IIT Jodhpur.
First of all, thank you so much for this last moment online arrangement. So my special thanks goes to the organizer and definitely to Professor Nita Inamdar. So with the thanks to the chair, Professor Prabhu, we will begin our presentation, and as rightly pointed out by Shreya, I'll be beginning and initiating, where Shreya will take over in the middle, and also I'll come back again for a few concluding remarks. Also, for the note that we have marginally modified the title. Also, it falls broadly under the same title that we have presented earlier, and it's also talking about a lot about basically the corporatization and how the platform academic capitalism is kind of taking its root through the transnational or international branch campuses in India. Now, one thing which I want to connect our talk to is what Professor Varghese in the previous session has just mentioned, that the knowledge transaction is taking over compared to the knowledge production. And what we have also observed, that this knowledge transaction is taking a form of a corporate model, which is operating in a very elite educational spaces. And that elite education spaces not about massification. It's about catering to a very small segment of population who can pay, yet probably for some reason do not want to go abroad. There could be various reasons, but the main guiding principle is that their paying capacity is high. So whether these courses are cheap or affordable, that's probably not the main priority. Whether the brand value is intact, that is going to be a major decisive factor in this case. But beginning the talk, the important thing to understand that the internationalization of higher education, in which, of course, Symbiosis has a very elaborated and eloquent report on that, we will be focusing not just on the overall understanding of internationalization of higher education, we'll be focusing on the international branch campuses, which is one of the subset of uh, the transnational education. And also, when we look at the international branch campuses or IBCs popularly, and Professor Dr. Elder Matthews, while he was in NEPA, he's provided a very interesting and elaborated understanding of what is and what is not part of the international branch campuses. And what are the things which are excluded in the international branch campuses are joint degree programs, training arrangements, and overseas campuses, serving students from the home country and so on, which of course coins Philip Elbach's definition and understanding of it. So situating in this context, what we are going to trying to understand is that among these four universities at present which are operating in India, and many very swiftly ramping up their operations and going to be operational very soon in different parts of India, and not just everywhere. It's let me call it, if I can, the global norths of India. They are operating very particular spaces, and why that is happening, and also what are their models of operations. Some of the talks, some of the discussions that we're going to present in the next few minutes, 7 to 8 minutes, are going to be around this theme. And the main question that we are going to ask here is that how do these technological patterns and how do these neoliberal market-centric patterns emerges and shape and mediating the functioning of the international branch campuses in India? We'll be highlighting some of the areas which are related to the tech, but also which are related also to the market and geopolitics. So from here on, I request my colleague Shreya to continue the presentation.
Okay, so can we please go to the next slide? So, to understand how tech patterns shape and mediate the functioning of international branch campuses, we critically look into the institutional and national policies. For this study, we restrict ourselves to four campuses, two emerging from UK and two emerging from Australia, who have set up their international branch campuses in India and are operational. So, our analysis is also divided into two parts. One, we look into the national context, some national policies on internationalization of higher education, specifically talking about international branch campuses emerging from two of the sending countries, that is UK and Australia, vis-a-vis the host country, that is India. And then, very briefly, I'll be talking about the institutional context as case studies of these four institutes that you can see on the screen. Going to the next slide. So, talking about the national context of the provider country, where we have some emerging documents coming from Australia and UK, which very extensively discuss their vision for internationalization of higher education, where two priorities which we'll be focusing on in today's presentation is related to economic revenue diversification and geopolitical partnerships. Now, within economic revenue diversification, if we go to the next slide, what we understand is from the existing policies that, for instance, if we talk about UK, they almost envision a 40 billion education export, which is targeted by 2030 from international branch campuses. Talking about Australia, where domestic funding constraints are rising, international branch campuses are seen as an alternate, a new avenue for generating expenditure through the local tuition fees. So, the fact that economic revenue diversification remains central to the policies of the sending countries, including UK and Australia, the next question that we ask is that how do digital technologies then mediate this this ongoing trend, where we find, particularly from the UK International Education Strategy of 2026, which emphasizes a lot on edtech and digital first transnational education for export growth. Also, scalability is catalyzed through digital technologies, where edtech market presently is already contributing to 3.89 pound billion to the UK's economy. And then talking about the Australian strategy for international education, 2021 to 30, where edtech tools again are given a lot of importance, particularly to cater to the infrastructural costs, facilitate data analytics for revenue forecasting. And now, something that converges out of these two patterns across UK and Australia is how the role of international branch campus, broadly a university, is then seen as a scalable export commodity, as a profit center, where higher education is treated, or the international branch campuses are mainly treated as a business venture. And that's where we position the whole idea of corporatization. Talking about the geopolitical partnerships very briefly, where the bilateral relations talk about the India UK vision, the Australia India vision, where again through technology as a mediator, the corporatization positions universities as a tradable service. In this particular slide, we come to the host country, where that is India, where I think in the previous session, Bhuvesha and the colleagues have very elaborately already explained how NEP 2020 envisions internationalization of higher education, followed by the subsequent efforts by UGC, including initiatives in 2021, 2022. The one on screen, which is very specific to IBCs, is the one which came in 2023, where we also see economic revenue diversification as a focus in India from a slightly different perspective, where we are trying to retain the economic value from outbound mobility, and also trying to emerge as a soft power in terms of global citizenship. Going to the next slide. What is interesting from our very preliminary analysis is that in India's context, we do see that the way corporatization is emerging from the sending countries is very different from how we see it in host country, because there are certain aspects available on place which are trying to resist it. So I'll go to the next slide now, in the interest of time, where I'd just very briefly like to mention that when we zoomed into the institutional mechanisms, what we saw was that how there is a very evident blurring of university, edtech platform, and corporate innovation lab, something that cohorts with Professor Varghese was talking about, where knowledge transaction, particularly its financial component, is taking over all the other components of knowledge production that we are aware about. And this leads us to our analysis, which I request Dr. Shayantan to talk about, which is a work in progress right now.
Yeah. So if you look at a little deeper in the process and analyze it through some framework, here I would like to coin Simon Marginson and Rhodes' theory of clonical agency heuristic, where we can see that the corporate model or the corporatization model based on almost like a platform-centric model is operating at different level, of course, at global, national, and local level. And global level, the brand consciousness or the brand reputation is, of course, playing a major role. And the model is almost operating like a mm, platform benchmarking or imagined as a benchmarking or of brand consciousness or brand value. At the national level, there are different policy actors and there are different cascades of policies, and positioning is important. So these international branch campuses, through their technocentric model and market-centric model, are positioned as a high-value product or high value goods, and which are globally viable, at the same time caters to the aspirational value of the nations at the and the market that nation provides. At the local level, these are more of operational issues, where digital technologies and different other modular platforms operates through different small mechanisms and negotiations. So this national space is the local space is a bit of a contested space, where Indian different states are also promoting or kind of advertising them as the suitable ground to establish the IBCs. Similar model which the states usually take when they invite some industries to their special economic zones and so on. So this kind of tensions as well as collaborations are happening at all levels. And when we're looking at the model, it's not a deterministic or determinative model in this case, but it's kind of a negotiated model. So that is basically the discussion that we have because, of course, of the paucity of time, we have to conclude. But the question that remains is that also, which is raised by the earlier speakers, is that in this process of corporatization and platform-centric model of international marketization and so on, what is lost? Because essentially what we're talking about is not just any other product. We're talking about higher education and the interaction between teachers and the students. And the first priority, to my understanding or to our understanding, should be learning. And learning in an interesting space, not just through a market-mediated platform-centric model. So what is lost? And we end up with this question to the audience to think over. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mondal and Dr. Shireen, for this wonderful presentation. We'll take one question. Anyone have any quick question to the participants, to the presenters? Okay, so maybe towards the end, if you find some time, we'll take questions. Now we will move on to the third presenter, who is Mr. Ashish Gaur, working as assistant professor at Symbiosis Law School, Symbiosis International University, Nagpur. So please come and share your thoughts and views.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers of the conference for giving young scholars like me this opportunity to present this paper here. So thank you, ma'am. With the permission of the chair, I'd like to start my presentation, sir. So I'll be presenting my paper on title Local Dividends and Digital Degrees, Assessing the Socio-Economic Impact and Viability of Hybrid Transnational Education in Tier 2 Cities. So this paper examines whether transnational education or the TNE can be redesigned for India's non-metropolitan cities so that, it supports not only educational access but also regional development. So I want to begin with one striking fact. More than 57.2% of Indian students enrolled abroad now come from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, up from a striking 47% a year earlier. At the same time, foreign university campuses and premium TNE initiatives in India still concentrated mainly in metropolitan locations such as Gurugram and Gift cities. So this tells us that the geography of educational demand has changed faster than the geography of educational supply. Next. So this paper starts basically from a three-part problem. First, the TNA supply in India is metro-centric. Second, the strongest growth in aspiration is coming from smaller cities, Tier 2 and Tier 3. And third, this mismatch creates a brain drain loop because, students, they move outward for quality and as well as prestige. We lose our future talent, spending and innovation capacity. So the paper asks whether TNE can be, reframed from a premium metropolitan product into a tool for inclusive regional growth. So the study is organized around three research questions. Research question 1 asks why a gap exists between metro-focused TNE supply and non-metro demand for global higher education. Research question 2, it asks whether a hybrid TNE model can be socio-economically viable in Tier 2 cities such as Nagpur and Jabalpur. And research question 3, enabling outward migration and instead support regional development and talent retention. So these questions are linked because the first diagnosis, the structural problem, and the second tests feasibility, and the third evaluates developmental significances. Methodology. So the methodology is especially important in this paper because the argument depends on place-sensitive analysis rather than a purely national or policy-level view. So I use a comparative case study design focused on two cities, which are Nagpur and Jabalpur. These cities are not treated simply as background examples. They function as analysis sites through which I evaluate whether hybrid TNE can work in real tier 2 urban contexts. So the comparative design allowed me to move forward the abstract claims and examine viability through the intersection of policy, local demand and socio-economic conditions, and as well as educational ecosystem capacity. Why is this model being evaluated? So the paper evaluates a specific model, namely hybrid TNE. So by hybrid, uh, I mean digitally delivered coursework combined with local academic support. So this includes a lower cost delivery compared with a full physical branch campuses while still retaining international curriculum, branding, pathway, and pathway value. So the model also assumes the possibility of local mentoring, labs, placement support, and also periodic residency, and especially with links with the industry. So this matters methodologically because the study is not addressing TNE in general. It is assessing one adapted delivery format designed for non-metropolitan conditions. So the answer to the first research question is that the disconnect is structural rather than accidental. NEP 2020, and the related reforms from made foreign entry possible, but early implementations naturally favored metros because they already had infrastructure, visibility, and premium demand. So foreign institutions, they tend to follow a risk minimizing logic. uh, Metros reduce uncertainty in staffing, partnerships, branding. Meanwhile, aspirations spread outward faster through digital information, counseling networks, and wider participation from smaller cities. So supply stayed concentrated even as demand decentralized. So the answer to the second research question is that a hybrid TNE model appears socio-economically viable in tier 2 settings. The main reason is that if if that matches the economics of aspiration in such cities, lower capital expenditures compare with a uh, full branch campus, it fits the affordability expectations of families seeking global credentials, and it lowers the cost than overseas study, and it uses digital infrastructure that has expanded significantly in the NEP era. Just as importantly, it does not remove the local layer. It allows mentoring, placement support, and institutional anchoring to uh, remain within the city. So this makes the model both more feasible and more scalable across emerging urban centers. Most importantly, the answer to the third research question is that hybrid TNE can generate what I call local dividends. So instead of pushing talented students only outward, it can help retain them closer to home for a longer period while still giving them access to globally branded credentials, and that creates spillovers for local housing, services, and education markets. So it can also produce stronger industry, coupling with linking curricula to regional employers and sector-specific needs. Finally, it can, support innovation culture by just bringing global pedagogy into local ecosystems. So the development potential of TNE lies not only in access, but in the retention and circulation of value within the region. So to make this more concrete, the paper outlines what hybrid TNE looks like in a tier 2 city. So firstly, a foreign higher education institution partners with a credible local institution or a learning hub. Second, core curriculum is delivered digitally through shared modules and remote faculty inputs. And thirdly, the local site provides academic anchoring through tutorials and other labs, counseling, and supervised assessments. Fourth, employability is embedded through internships and employer partnerships. And finally, the value. So to conclude, the paper argues that India's TNE future should not be understood only as a arrival of foreign universities in major metros. It should also be seen as an opportunity to redesign global higher education for emerging cities where aspiration is growing fastest. And the comparative analysis suggests that in places such as Nagpur and Jabalpur, hybrid TNE is a viable not merely as an access mechanism, but as a strategy for talent retention, regional development, and inclusive growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. You can stay back. If we have any question from the audience, we'll take one question.
Hello. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. The topic is very apt, and you thought very different of how to think about a hybrid TNE. My question is, you are talking about bringing these universities into tier 2 and 3 cities. How will you consider the cost of the program? Will the students be able to afford these kind of fees the universities are bringing in?
Yes, thank you for the question, ma'am. Very important question. So the idea is to understand the needs of the area. So through the theoretical framework of Ivan LHD schooling societies, we can inculcate certain curricula through offshore campuses so that we can integrate not just the education part, but also how people live in those communities. So I believe that we have to take away the cost of the education, but focus on the social aspects of education.
Thank you.
Really good presentation there and some great points. I want to understand the ROI. For a tier 2, tier 3 city student, an ROI is as important as a tier 1 student, right? When we look at gift city campuses like Deakin, on campus full-time studies could only give a 30% placement last year. How do we look at online mediums or these blended models to give out an ROI for a student who puts their faith into such models?
Well, the idea is the same, ma'am. Thank you for the question. So we need to focus on the opportunities that particular area is developing and focus on the curricula accordingly. So I believe that is the only way forward, nothing else. Yes. And I understood the question. Ma'am, so I'm repeating myself, the only way forward is change of curricula and understand the local viability of the syllabus itself.
No, I agree. The syllabus has to be changed and has to be as per the local needs. But would industries in that area accept that curriculum as placement worthy?
We have to partner with the industries when it comes to making campuses, offshore campuses. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Now, next presentation, we have Dr. Mitali Chugh, Associate Professor, UPES Dehradun. She has 22 years of experience in teaching. She teaches courses like AI, ML, DL. She has also filed a patent. She received copyrights, and she also received Research Excellence Award. Good afternoon, Mitali ma'am.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, you are now audible.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Dr. Mitali Chugh, and I will be presenting my work on transforming transnational education through generative AI. So this transnational education actually has expanded significantly through several years, or in recent years, I would say. And universities, they are actually offering their cross-border programs through online platforms, or through the branch campuses, or through the joint degrees. This is how this universities, they are offering the global programs. For example, if there is a student in India, he or she can enroll in the program offered by UK university without physically relocating. Okay. So, however, while this access has increased, the quality and the inclusivity of the learning experiences, they are still uneven. So, when this expansion is there for the education, the TNE models, they say they face the several challenges. First is that learning is often standardized, as in the old models we have seen, and it does not suit the diverse learners' needs. And second thing is there are access gaps, especially in the regions with the limited digital infrastructure. And the third point here is to emphasize is that the scaling of the personalized education, it is really difficult when we talk about the traditional mechanisms for the education. So, for instance, if we have a single course delivered globally, then it is really difficult when to adapt the different learning speeds of the or to the different cultural context. So here the role of generative AI comes into picture, and the generative AI plays a very important role, and we can shift the education from static delivery to the dynamic environment. So now, when we talk about this static delivery to the dynamic interactions, then in that case, we have to overcome these limitations of personalized learning and the scalability challenges, also the access gaps and the standardized delivery. So for that, we have the generative AI to solve this purpose, and we can have intelligent tutors that can provide 24 by 7 support, and student can ask any question anytime as per the convenience. Then we can have the smart assessment systems that give the instant feedback without waiting for a number of days, because of certain human limitations. It becomes delayed for certain times. And then the content generation can also be there in the multiple languages, which can help the learners to cater to their different needs. And finally, we can have the adaptive learning systems that can personalize the learning paths. So when we have all these, it makes the learning student center and flexible. So if we look at whatever we have discussed till now, the learning from the traditional TNE is shifting to AI-enabled ecosystems. Earlier, the models were teacher-centered. However, now the shift is from learner-centered. Earlier, the delivery was localized, and now we have the global collaborations for the courses that we run. Then we have the fixed schedules in the traditional transnational education. However, we have adapted for flexible and the adaptive learning platforms. Earlier, it was the standardized curriculum which every student used to follow. Now we have the hyper personalized platforms that can be used here. So we can see directly that there is a major shift how we think about education in the recent times. So when we club this model which we think about, it is really impossible to have it without generative AI or AI usage. So when AI is integrated into traditional approach, it transforms into the new model, and generative AI would help to improve the access for the learners for the underserved global regions. As in the previous presentation also, we have discussed that if we are talking about the tier 2 cities, then there also generative AI can play the role. Then it can support the multilingual learning also. That is the second opportunity, making our education system more inclusive. And moreover, it would enhance or engage through the personalization. That is what generative AI would offer as the opportunities. However, whatever brings us opportunities, challenges follow through. So there are certain challenges also when we integrate generative AI into our systems. And the first and foremost challenge that is there is the data privacy, which is the most important concern. As our second challenge. The third challenge is the academic integrity, which becomes an issue when AI can generate the answers, right? And finally, there is a problem of digital divide. That means not all learners, they are benefited equally when we talk about the standardized systems along with the incorporation of AI. So, to support the views which I have just said, there are case studies which are existing in the literature as well, and we all are seeing it in day-to-day lives as well. So, from United States, we have the MOOC platforms like Coursera and EDX, where where we have like there are we have the AI assisted learning is provided through the massive global to the massive global cohorts. So here we have seen that how scalability is incorporated into these systems. This is a very good example where we can see that how scalability is incorporated into the generative AI assisted systems. Then the second case study which is there is from Erasmus, and that is related to virtual exchange. And it has been offered through the European Union. In this case study, it has been highlighted as the collaborative and intercultural learning has been like highlighted. And the third case study is about China. And we all know that China is offering smart education initiatives. And here, China has provided the smart education initiative, which is on the large scale, and it is policy driven integration of AI in education. So these three case studies which we have just seen, one from US, one from European Union, and one from China, all the three, they are like serving one particular, or they are touching one particular dimension here. Like your Coursera and EDX relate to scalability, that is demonstrated by US based platforms, these both. And the collaboration that is demonstrated by EU initiatives, and system level transformation is there, that is demonstrated by China. So based on these learnings, what we have actually proposed in our work is a three pillar architecture for the global ecosystem where generative AI has to be incorporated. The three pillars are the responsible AI governance, that is used for establishing the data privacy standards and academic integrity protocols. Second pillar is about the global curriculum co-design. And uh, the third pillar is about the capacity building that ensures that both the educators as well as the learners, they can use AI effectively. So these are the three pillars for our framework, which we have proposed in our work. And if I look at from the courses or the MOOCs that are offered from India, that is Swayam courses, if I look at, then talking about the responsible AI governance, currently the strong policy has been implemented by NEP 2020. However, what is lacking here is that we should develop the national AI governance policies for the education. And we must ensure that we have the transparent AI systems that would help to secure the learner data handling and the ethical usage frameworks as well. Then if I talk about the second pillar, that is the global curriculum co-design. In a present scenario, SWAYAM is offering high quality content from the top tier Indian institutions. So content is largely centralized and standardized. So the limitation actually here is international collaboration. So we can develop the joint courses with international universities that can incorporate the multilingual content. And the final third pillar in respect to in respect to capacity building is that we should convert the mass education. We should have the campaigns that should provide the educators as well as learners about the whereabouts of generative AI. So this particular transformation is there from mass education delivery to intelligent, inclusive global education system. That is what we want to focus in this particular case. And this three foundational pillars, they are related to not simply they are like proposed, they are related to sustainable development goals. Sustainable development goal 4, which relates to improved education quality, sustainable development goal 10, that is for reducing the inequalities, and sustainable development 17 for promoting the global partnerships. So this framework, what we expect would help to establish the generative AI based systems, and so that we can have the international collaborations for enhancing the personalized learning in our systems. So this is how we have like proposed our model. And I would like to conclude by saying that transnational education is actually at a turning point, and generative AI, it is offering the powerful opportunity to address these existing challenges and create the more inclusive systems. So that is all from my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful presentation and bringing AI into transnational education. Now we'll take one question.
Thank you very much. I am Colonel Dr. Sridhar. I am the Vice Chancellor of Adichunchanagiri University from Karnataka. This is for all the speakers who spoke so far. And the points which are untouched, which I just wanted to highlight, and anyone can take it further also. Basically, when we look at transnational, the platforms coming from outside to India, also from inside India to the other side, basically, what is the student mindset? If one university from, let me say Australia comes into India, the students will be looking, can I have a session or an opportunity to work in Australia when I study in India with this university? Most of the people actually will be looking for, after the education, where do I work, at least for 1 year, 2 years. The work visa will be given for a student who actually goes to Australia and spends his time there in the same university, but will not be given. Madam also mentioned about the ROI. ROI may be in a multiple sense actually. One is actually the job opportunities either abroad, internationally, or inside. The other one is the further appointment in terms of higher education, maybe PhD, etc. and so on. The third one, many of the students from India would like to have the cultural immersion with other universities rather than staying here and then learning from other thing. Lastly, I just my reservation on the online and the hybrid education, though they are very effective. Many a time, see, for example, I take one example of Coventry University. They have developed fantastic automotive industry type of ambience there. The labs are fantastic. They cannot move all the labs onto this place where the students can have that feel with hands. In such cases, people may try to go there only and then work on it. These are some challenges which they can work on. So this is my observation for all of them, and I'm thankful that the Symbiosis University has made such a thing, and I'm also happy to see the type of the calculations, mathematical models getting into this topic. I'm so happy with being one of the member in this particular. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this question, sir. I think this was not directed to Mithali ma'am. It was an overall comment. But Mithali ma'am, would you like to rebut quickly?
Yeah, actually, as per my understanding, what sir has just mentioned is earlier we were dealing with the standardized systems, and as I have mentioned in the presentation, that we can incorporate generative AI there. And sir has mentioned that students would love to move to those locations and then work. Definitely, this is more like enhanced form of learning which students get. But however, there are certain limitations from the students' end who are not able to relocalize themselves. So in those cases, they can go for personalized learning through the AI assisted platforms. So that is what is an addition to what we are actually doing.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And may I now request our chair, Dr. Gopalakrishna, to summarize and share his thoughts and views. Sir.
So, good afternoon. And I'm sure they also have the time limit for the session chair also. No, you must. Okay, first of all, it's a very nice, first we must congratulate Symbiosis for getting all of us together on a particular theme which is very hot and very relevant. Special thanks to Dr. Vidyaji, Dr. Neetaji, and the entire team that what you have it here. Very good presentation and very attentive audience and a lot of enthusiasm to ask the questions and all. Could be very difficult for the chair to conclude it. It is already being done very beautifully, and must congratulate you, guy. So I think he has done a great job. Can we give a big round of applause for him? Yeah, so quick, done, showing. Okay, the first one is by Dr. Diaji and reframing the transitional education. The beautiful thing which she narrated along with other authors is scale versus scope. This is something which is very important. It's not only for TNE. For every program, as a vice chancellor or the administration, we always look for scale and scope. If both things are there, that the things will move. But today, what it is being mentioned is about, yes, there is a scope is there. For example, when you say internationalization, each university does so many MOUs. Lot of programs, pathways, dual degree, twinning, many things that you do it. If you see the number of MOUs, more than 100 universities that each university has it. So now you look into the number of students who utilizes. Initially, I was with the Mahe Manipal. Mahe Manipal started the internationalization way back in 1953. The first ever medical college where the student used to come from Malaysia. Of course, it was altogether a different program, but internationalization started from the very first batch. Okay, so then all these kind of new things comes. The total number of the total students from Mahe going is about 300 per year. Okay, great. Now, from there that I moved to Jaipur campus. And of course, Jaipur representatives are also there. Again, having the support, bring it here. If you see, the total number is about 50. Okay. Now, I moved from the other campus in Gangtok. I used the same equation. Total number of students moving for all these kind of a thing, 0. So, scope is there, but the scale is not there. That is the difficulty of these internationalization. And then the solution came is COIL. That is a collaborative online international learning. Can we use this to also to address the scale? So, of course, the authors has some kind of an apprehension, rightly so, but the audience has a very enthusiastic question, why it is not so? Yeah, so all those things are happening, but definitely the COIL would give that to address this question if there is a scale, if it is being properly managed it. And there are one or two examples which are happening because through this, the COIL and the students not only study the subject, but also the culture. Okay, so one question came from that, how the culture will, I'm not talking about the culture of the culture of the project. Because there is one example that I see, the students from Australia and the student from India, they come on this platform online and they did a project which is on advertisement. Okay, now in the advertisement in Australia, the nature with which they address the whole advertisement for a particular product is entirely different from which we do it from India. Many of our advertisement, if you say it is a family based, okay, the child will also be there, family will be there, and most of the advertisement running through the Diwali, all those kind of a thing, which is a very difficult to analyze for an Australian student. Now, if they come together, bring this, Of course, their advertisement may be on a little but fun on that, more technicality. So this, when they come together to design, learn, this culture will also come into the picture. Our student will learn theirs, their student will. So this is the one of the aspects that I'm thinking. And this is the coil would be the solution, but again, it has its own challenges. Okay, let us go for the second, which is an internationalization of the curriculum and basically the understanding the pattern of tech-based in higher education. They were really brought down something that showed the foreign university campuses in India are technology and to strengthen the curriculum of internationalization and bringing the global learning in the local context. This would be another in the TNE if they are using it properly. It is not only if the student goes there, he will only learn global. But if it is in this hybrid model, if you say they learn the global, but the local context, that is something that which is the second paper which brought somewhere in between. The third is a very catchy title, like Local Dividends and Digital Degrees by Ashish Gaurav Symbiosis. Here, it reminds about the hybrid transitional education and addressing more on Tier 1 and Tier 2, Tier 2 and Tier 3. Why? Because of the target groups, large volumes of students are there. Okay, so one of the thing, why? Because of the regional growth, the talent retention, and the wider access. So this is the very, very important, sir. Of course, now this is the major situation. Of course, it can't be addressed only by the TNE or internationalization. But most of the time today we are feeling is the smaller cities, if you see, the students are going out for education. Once they have the education, they go for another cities for a job. And if you see our own cities, there are only elderly parents are there. Yes or no? Okay. And now, I come from a place called as Karkala, and in this whole city now, there are elderly parents. Okay, so now the difficulty for us now, how to manage our parents, because they are not ready to come, because 40 years they have studied there, okay, or stayed there, and now if you ask them to move, it could be very difficult. So that is the problem. But now the question which we say that once you do this, of course, I'm not telling that once you have a TNE that all the problems are solved. It's not that. But the problem that you have raised is the cost and an ROI. How it would be a very difficult. So one example, madam, that how this is being done, Manipal and ICICI came back with some kind of a good model, which is called as an ICICI Manipal Academy. What they have done, ICI has selected the people from the Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. They trained them with a condition they are put back in the same ICICI bank in the same hometown. They are going back and working it. Maybe for an industry collaboration, the answer somebody said, maybe ICICI, they have the branches everywhere, that is a possibility. But for a all larger, industry, it may not be. But this is an effort, it needs to be addressed. The last point that it is being transforming translational education through generative AI. This is something which is now coming up very beautifully. Okay, so one example that I gave, having the generative AI, the very important thing that which I find that you can convert the content in the local language. Many times that you say, why it is so important? I remember my own, because till 12th or 10th standard, I studied in the local language like Kannada. Okay, and the first time I went for a PUC, I could not read maths. Because maths was taught in local language like Sama, Bhagisu, Gunisu, Varga, Mula, Varga, and Ganamula, all this. Suddenly they say that it is a square root, equal. Even equal I did not know. Okay, it's called as Sama. And now this is a great difficulty for a person like me going directly and understand. I can do the maths beautifully. I'm an academically strong student, not a dull guy, okay? But when the teacher teaches the maths or says something that I'm clueless, okay, I remember this. And in my university, in Sikkim Manipal University, I launched an online education. So what I did as an experiment, I did not ask anybody. I just say that larger crowd where it came. It came from West Bengal for me. So I put an online AI model over which converted all content in Bengali. And I asked one Bengali teacher, Bhaiya, please go through it. If there is a major error, you concentrate it. I gave a disclaimer. This is an AI generated content. Student can use this. And then I saw the result. 80% of my students, learners, they went into the online generated, AI generated Bengali content and they learned. Of course, examination is only on English, not in Bengali. But for a learner, I utilize this beautiful because most of the people, they are not telling, I don't know English. Okay, there is an ego, no? I also did not tell that when I was in first PUC. Okay, but I know that. And this is how AI can effectively used in the learning. And the second one is I need to study at my own pace. Why we have to go run together. And this is something very beautifully mentioned is personalized and inclusive and sustainable. And this AI in the online that we have to be effectively used. But the problem is what is also mentioned is a responsible and ethical adoption. When I use this a tool, I have to be very careful which kind of a tool that I have. If it is a biased tool, all my students will be polarized the way I want. It must not be done like this. The tool must be very transparent, very intelligent and unbiased. And similarly, the student must use this tool only to learn, not to copy and submit to get the marks. So the ethical behavior must be available or adopt to both from the institution side as from the student side. I'm sure that you forgot to show the timeline. Okay, but beautifully, it's a very interesting and it is how we are using. See, few years back, it is only HIE, higher education institution. Now it is a TNE, all other transnational education. Good, these things must happen and we must take part in it. This is the way that we need to move forward and go. Challenges are there. People will talk. It may happen, it may not happen. Yes, there are so many experiences that we have it. Every day there would be a challenges, regulatory will twist us. All those things happen, guys. Okay, but for a few of us, like vice chancellors, but for students like you and all, enjoy. This is somewhere that you have a great opportunity. I think we have to move. And can we give a big round of applause for all the authors? So they have done a great job. Okay, any questions to the session chair? No, I will be available during tea time or lunch time. Okay, so great job. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Gopala Krishna sir. Sir, you can stay back. You can stay back. And may I now request our Dean, Department of Education, Symbiosis International University, Dr. Neeta, to felicitate sir with a token of appreciation, which is coming. And may I also request the presenters to just come here for a group photograph. And online presenters, can you please switch on your cameras so that we can take a group hybrid picture.
Thank you. I would also like to take this opportunity to invite Professor Verghese. I think the last session ended abruptly. So, ma'am, Neeta ma'am, could you please stay back? Professor Verghese was the session chair for the previous session. Thank you so much, sir. May I also invite the paper presenters, Dr. Sulakshana, Dr. Shweta, Ms. Bhuvesha, Mr. Wali, Ms. Icha. I think Pushkarni ma'am, yeah, she was online, but.
Thank you so much.